Close your eyes for a moment and let the noise of the day soften in the background. Before this night carries you into sleep, allow yourself to arrive fully here. In this moment, in this breath, in this gentle space created just for you. You've walked through so many hours today. You've carried thoughts, worries, expectations, and all the invisible weight the world quietly places on your shoulders. But here, you don't have to carry anything. Tonight, through the quiet teachings of Zen Buddhism and the soft, healing story you're about to hear, you will slowly return to the peace that has always lived inside you, just hidden beneath the noise of everyday life. Let the sound of my voice guide you. Let the stillness around you open like a calm, endless sky. Let your breath loosen the tightness you didn't even know you were holding. This is your time, your sanctuary, your safe space to unwind and release. Whether you've come here seeking rest, comfort, clarity, or simply a moment of peace in a world that moves too fast, know that you are in the right place. And you are welcome here exactly as you are. Take a slow breath in and exhale gently. Allow yourself to be held by this moment as we begin the journey. A journey into calm, into presence, into deep, healing sleep. Welcome to the story. Welcome to the stillness. Welcome home. Part 1. Kai's Sleepless Nights. The journey begins in the quiet hours of the night. Night had fallen over the small mountain village, but Kai lay awake, staring at the wooden beams above his bed. The shadows trembled gently with the flicker of the oil lamp outside, yet his mind was anything but still. His thoughts ran like frightened animals, restless and uncatchable, scattering into the dark. He closed his eyes, but the worries followed him like echoes. Why can't I find peace? Why does my heart beat so loudly in the quiet? Why does night feel heavier than day? For weeks, sleep had drifted further and further away from him. What began as a single restless night had grown into many, long stretches of darkness where his breath felt shallow, his chest tight, and his thoughts too loud to ignore. The elders in the village said it was simply stress or age. The healer gave him herbs. A friend suggested warm broth before bed. Nothing brought rest, but deep inside, Kai sensed that the problem wasn't in his body, so it was in his mind. Sometimes when he sat outside his home at dusk, he could feel the world softening, the wind lowering its voice, the river slowing its song, the sky settling into indigo calm. Everything grew quiet except him. His thoughts did not understand stillness. His heart did not know how to loosen its grip. And his mind. His mind was a storm refusing to pass. Tonight was no different. Kai stood from his bed and walked to the small window overlooking the valley. The moon hung low, round and full like a lantern in the sky. The rooftops below glowed faintly under its light. He wanted to feel the peace that the night offered, but instead he felt a familiar ache. A loneliness that came not from being alone, but from being trapped inside himself. He whispered into the darkness, "Why can't I sleep?" His voice trembled as if afraid to wake the world around him. But the world was already asleep. The village rested, the animals rested, even the wind rested. Only Kai remained awake, pacing gently inside a mind that would not quiet. He pressed a hand to his chest and felt his own heartbeat, fast, uneven, as though trying to outrun the silence rather than sink into it. He walked outside, letting the cold night air wrap around him. The scent of pine drifted softly from the forest edge. Lanterns flickered in a few windows, but most homes were dark. He listened to the quiet, hoping it would seep into him. But silence felt heavy, almost frightening, as though it only magnified the noise within him. Kai closed his eyes and breathed in the crisp air. He wanted to understand why rest had become so difficult. why the night had become so long, why his heart felt so unsettled. He thought about recent months, the endless tasks, the expectations, the pressure he placed upon himself to be strong, capable, productive. The days passed quickly, but the nights stretched endlessly. He felt as though he had become two different people, one who moved through daylight in control, and one who fell apart each evening in the darkness. Sleep was no longer sleep, it was a battleground. And tonight, standing alone in the cold, Kai realized something. He could not go on this way. He needed help, not from herbs or warm broth or polite advice, but from someone who understood the mind, someone who could see beyond his worries, someone who walked the path of stillness. He had heard stories in his childhood, stories of monks and masters who lived in temples hidden deep in the mountains. Men and women who had touched a kind of peace most people only dreamed of. People who understood the silence between thoughts, who knew the mind's storms and how to calm them. Kai had always believed those stories were for other people, seekers, scholars, wanderers, not for someone like him. But now he felt called, almost pulled, as if something deep inside was whispering, "Go, find the teachers, learn." A soft resolve began forming in his chest. Not loud, not dramatic, just a gentle truth settling into place. He would leave the village, not forever, just long enough to find what he needed, long enough to understand his mind, long enough to return to himself. He returned home and sat at the edge of his bed. His hands rested on his knees, and for the first time in many nights he felt a small, fragile clarity. He whispered to himself, "Maybe I need to learn how to be still." The moonlight touched his face, gentle as a hand on his cheek. He looked around his small room, the woven mat, the low table, the teapot, the single candle. Everything he owned was simple, yet he felt heavier than all of it. He packed only what he needed, a small cloth bag with clothes, a wooden cup, a bit of rice, and his father's old cloak. As he tied the bag shut, a wave of emotion rose in him. Not fear, not sadness, but something like relief. The decision alone brought a kind of peace. Before leaving, he knelt on the floor and placed his hands together. He whispered not a prayer, but a quiet intention. "Let me find what I have forgotten." Outside, the village slept in perfect stillness. Kai stepped into the moonlit path and began walking toward the edge of the mountains. The air was cold enough to make his breath visible, but it felt refreshing, clearing something inside him. He didn't know which teacher he would find first, or how long the journey would take. He only knew one thing: the life he was living could no longer continue. Something had to change, someone had to guide him, and he was finally ready to seek that guidance. As he walked, the night grew even quieter. The wind softened around him as if acknowledging his decision. The stars seemed brighter as though lighting his path. With each footstep, his thoughts seemed a little less sharp, a little less tangled, as if the very act of leaving had loosened a weight he didn't know he carried. He didn't know it yet, but this path would lead him to masters who would change his life. Hakuin, who would teach him to return to the present. Soen, who would show him how to flow with life. Dogen, who would reveal the emptiness that frees the mind. Bank, who would show him how to stop fighting reality. Ijo, who would teach him the softness of compassion. And finally, Grandmother Ren, whose simple wisdom would be the greatest of all. But for now, Kai only walked, step by gentle step, into the night, into his fear, into possibility. And for the first time in a long time, he felt something soften inside him. Something like hope. The journey had begun. Part 2. Meeting Master Hakuin. Learning to return to the present moment. The mountains rose before Kai like a dark silhouette against the fading night. The path narrowed as he walked farther from the village, and the cool air grew sharper, brushing gently across his cheeks. He wrapped his father's cloak around him, letting its weight settle over his shoulders. It felt comforting, like a quiet reminder that even though he was traveling alone, he was not without guidance. By the time the first light of dawn touched the ridge, Kai reached the entrance of a small clearing. The sound of a bamboo fountain echoed softly through the trees. Each hollow toque against stone seemed to slow the rhythm of his heart. A stone lantern stood near a simple wooden sign. Hakwin's Hermitage. Kai hesitated. He had heard the name before. Hakwin was known as a monk who valued presence above all else. Some said he could walk through the busiest marketplace and still remain as calm as a still pond. Others said he could silence the mind of a troubled man with only a sentence. Kai swallowed, gathering the remnants of courage from the night before. He stepped inside. The clearing was peaceful, embraced by tall pines swaying gently in the morning wind. A small hut sat near a moss-covered stone path. Smoke drifted softly from its chimney, carrying the scent of pine resin and herbs. Birds called from the branches, their voices light and playful. Kai was so lost in the stillness of the place that he didn't notice the elderly monk sitting beside the fountain. The monk's posture was straight yet relaxed. His eyes were half closed, as if listening to something deeper than sound. Kai stopped, unsure if he should speak. Without opening his eyes, the monk said quietly, "You walk as though the earth is fragile." Kai startled. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disturb." The monk shook his head gently and opened his eyes. No disturbance, only observation. He studied Kai for a long moment, and his gaze felt strangely grounding, like being seen not just for who he was, but for the weight he carried. "You carry worry in your steps," the monk said. "Your feet touch the earth, but your mind does not." Kai felt his chest tighten. "You can see that? It is loud," Hakwin replied softly. "Louder than your footsteps." Kai lowered his head. Shame rose inside him. Shame for his restless heart, his broken sleep, his inability to find peace like others seemed to. "I came because I can't sleep," Kai said quietly. "My thoughts, they won't stop." Hakuin nodded slowly, as if he had heard this story many times before. "Sit," he said. Kai obeyed, settling onto the smooth stone beside him. The bamboo fountain tipped forward, filled with water, then fell back against the rock with another gentle toke. The sound echoed through the clearing like a heartbeat. Hakwin placed his hands on his knees. Then he said nothing. At first, the silence was soothing. The cool air, the bird song, the fountain, all of it blended into a soft lullaby. But Kai's thoughts began to churn. Is he expecting me to speak? Am I supposed to meditate? Does he know what to do with someone like me? What if he can't help me? What if I never sleep again? The silence grew heavier. Kai fidgeted, then finally blurted out, "Master, what should I do?" Hakuin turned his head slightly. "Nothing." Kai blinked. "Nothing?" Hakuin nodded. "You have been doing far too much already. You try to control your breath. You try to silence your mind. You try to force yourself to sleep. You try to chase peace like a man chasing his own shadow." He leaned closer, his voice a whisper carried by the breeze. "The peace is not something you chase. Peace is something you allow." Kai swallowed, unsure how to respond. "You look at the fountain," Hakwin said. Kai turned toward it. The water filled the bamboo tube until it tipped, emptied, then fell back to strike the stone. Took. Then the process repeated. "Tell me," Hakwin said, "is the fountain trying to tip?" Kai shook his head. "No, master." "Is it forcing itself to be still?" "No." "Does it punish itself for moving?" Kai paused, then replied softly, "No. It simply moves in its own rhythm." Hakuin smiled. "And yet you treat your mind like a machine that must obey you. You scold it for wandering. You fear its movement. You try to bind it into stillness with effort. But the mind is like water. Its nature is to move. Kai looked down at his hands. Then how do I stop it? You don't, Hakuin said gently. You observe it until it settles on its own. He stood slowly, motioning for Kai to follow. They walked along a narrow path beside the tall pines. The forest floor was soft with fallen needles, and every step felt cushioned, quiet, natural. Hey Kai, Hakuin said, but tell me, when you lie awake at night, where is your mind? Kai answered without thinking. It's everywhere except here. It jumps to the past, to mistakes, to fears, to the things I haven't done, the things I can't change. Hakuin nodded, and that is why you cannot sleep. He stopped walking and pointed to the forest. Look, Kai looked. He saw trees layered in shades of green, light filtering through branches, a few petals drifting in the wind. What do you see? Hakuin asked. Trees, Kai said. Only trees? Kai hesitated. Light, shadows, and the wind. Hakuin smiled. And how long did it take you to see them? Kai frowned. A moment, I suppose. Exactly, because you were here. You were not in yesterday, you were not in tomorrow. The moment you return to the present, clarity appears without effort. He placed a hand lightly on Kai's shoulder. Your suffering is not in the present moment. Your suffering is in the moments you are not living. Kai felt his breath catch. Those words landed in him like a truth he had always known but never understood. Hakuin continued walking with slow, grounded steps. When you cannot sleep, it is not because the night is unkind. It is because you are not present for the night. You are attending 1,000 thoughts instead. Kai exhaled shakily. Then how do I come back? He asked. How do I return to the present when my mind keeps running? Hakuin stopped again. Lift your foot, he said. Kai did. Place it down. Kai obeyed. That, Hakuin said softly, was a moment of presence. Kai looked up at him, surprised. Do it again, slowly. Kai lifted his foot, feeling the slight shift in weight, the contact of air on his skin. He placed it down, feeling the earth beneath him. Again, Hakuin whispered. Kai repeated the movement, and again, and again. The world seemed to slow. The forest grew quieter. Something inside Kai softened, a tension he had carried for years without noticing. E-presence, Hakuin said, is not complicated. It is simply a tension resting where the body is. He guided Kai back to the clearing. The sun was higher now, casting warm gold over the mossy stones. Kai, Hakuin said, you came here for sleep. But you will sleep only when you remember how to be here. Not ahead, not behind, just here. Kai nodded, his eyes stinging slightly, not with sadness but with recognition. Hakuin placed a bowl of tea in his hands. Drink this slowly, he said, not as a task, not as a cure, as a practice. Kai lifted the bowl and felt its warmth. He smelled the soft, earthy scent. He took a sip, letting the flavor rest on his tongue. Everything felt slower, deeper, more alive. He looked at Hakuin. Master, he whispered, I think I'm beginning to understand. Hakuin smiled. Good, then your journey may continue. Kai bowed deeply. He had come seeking sleep, but what he found was something more important. A doorway back to the present moment. A place his mind had forgotten. A place his heart longed for. As he left Hakuin's hermitage, he felt the world differently, quieter, softer, clearer. And though his journey was far from over, Kai sensed he had taken his first real step toward peace. Part 3. Walking with Hakuin. Learning to see the present instead of chasing the future. Kai walked down the narrow path leading away from Hakuin's hermitage, yet the old monk's words echoed inside him like soft bells in the wind. Presence is the doorway, attention resting where the body is. He repeated the words silently as he walked, trying to let them sink deeper into his heart. The forest around him glowed with morning light, and the air smelled of dew and pine resin. Every breath he took felt clearer somehow, as if the journey itself was teaching him to breathe for the first time. He walked slowly, not because he needed to, but because it felt right. A few days ago, he would have rushed down the path, eager to reach the next destination, anxious about the future, consumed by thoughts about what he had to fix inside himself. But today, even the simplest movement, a step, a breath, a shift of sunlight through branches, felt like an invitation to be here in this very moment. And yet, being present was not as easy as it seemed. As Kai walked deeper into the forest, thoughts began creeping back in. What if sleep never returns? What if I'm not strong enough to change? What if this journey is useless? He sighed, feeling frustration rise. Why can't my mind just stay still? He muttered. A gentle voice replied behind him. Because silence is not a command, it is a friendship. Kai turned. Master Hakuin stood there, having followed him a short distance, quiet and effortless, like mist drifting between the trees. I thought you remained in your hermitage, Kai said, startled. Hakuin smiled faintly. The body stayed. The teaching continues. Kai lowered his gaze. I'm sorry, Master, my mind wandered again. It will wander 1,000 times, Hakuin said, and you will return 1,001. That is practice. He motioned for Kai to walk with him. They followed the forest path together. Birds flitted through the branches above. Sunlight danced across patches of moss below. The world moved with soft purpose. Kai, Hakuin said, tell me what your mind does when you walk alone. Kai hesitated. It runs ahead. It creates stories about what might happen, or revisits the things that already happened. And while it runs, Hakuin asked, where is your life? Kai looked down. Not here. Exactly. They stopped near a slow-flowing stream. Hakuin knelt beside it and placed a small leaf on the surface. The leaf drifted peacefully downstream. Do you see the leaf? He asked. Yes, Kai replied. Does it resist the water? No. Does it try to float faster or slower? No, Master. Hakuin looked at him gently. Then why do you? Kai felt the words hit him like a distant drum. The leaf wasn't trying. It wasn't striving. It wasn't fighting for control. It simply allowed itself to be carried. He closed his eyes briefly, feeling something in his chest loosen. I don't know how to stop trying, Kai whispered. I've spent so much of my life pushing, planning, worrying. I don't know how to just be. Hakuin placed a steady hand on his shoulder. Presence is not about stopping effort. It is about stopping resistance. They continued walking, and the path opened into a wide field where wildflowers swayed in the gentle breeze. Hakuin guided Kai into the center of the field. Sit, he said softly. Kai did. Now, Hakuin said, close your eyes, feel the breeze, hear the insects, notice the sun warming your skin. Kai let his breath slow. He felt the air brush across his face, light as silk. He heard distant birds, their calls drifting through the sky. But soon thoughts began whispering, this is taking too long. Am I doing it right? What if nothing changes? His shoulders tensed. Hakuin's voice floated gently through the air. Where is your mind now? Kai opened his eyes a little. In the future, again. And where is your peace? Hakuin asked. Kai swallowed. Here, but I'm not. Hakuin smiled softly. Good, you are beginning to see. He lifted a blade of grass and held it between two fingers. Hey Kai, he said, the present moment is delicate. It does not force itself on you. It waits patiently for you to return. He let the blade of grass fall. When your mind runs, do not chase it. Do not judge it. Do not fight it. Simply notice and come back. Kai let the words soak into him. Not chase, not judge, not fight, just notice. He closed his eyes again, softer this time. A bird called in the distance. The wind shifted, a petal brushed his hand. And then, just for a tiny moment, Kai felt himself settle. Not perfectly, not deeply, but gently, like a leaf drifting toward the surface of water. When he opened his eyes, Hakuin was watching him with warm approval. "You returned," Hakuin said. "Only for a moment," Kai replied. "A moment is enough," Hakuin said. "Moments become breaths. Breaths become minutes. Minutes become a life lived fully awake." They walked on until they reached an old stone bridge crossing a narrow gorge. Water roared softly far below. The sky above them had turned a clear blue. "Hey Kai," Hakuin said, "your journey does not end with me. Presence is the first step, but not the last. You must meet other teachers who will illuminate what lies ahead." Kai straightened. "Other teachers?" "Yes, the next one lives near the river a day's walk from here. His name is Soen. You will know him when you find him. He teaches the art of letting go." Kai felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Letting go? Of what? Hakuin smiled mysteriously. "What burdens you?" Kai nodded slowly. He didn't fully understand, but he trusted the old monk's intuition. "Before you go," Hakuin said, "remember this. You do not need to master presence. You only need to return to it." Kai bowed deeply, gratitude filling his chest. "Thank you, Master, for your patience, for your guidance." Hakuin touched a finger to Kai's forehead. "Walk slowly," he said. "Walk as if each step is the only moment you will ever have." Kai breathed in, letting the forest air fill his lungs. The world seemed softer now, yet sharper at the same time. Clearer, more vibrant. He adjusted the strap of his bag and stepped onto the path leading farther into the mountains. For a few minutes he walked normally, but then he remembered. He looked down at his feet. He lifted one foot, placed it down, then the other. Slow, gentle, present. And in this simple rhythm, a quiet peace began to bloom inside him. It wasn't sleep, not yet, but it was something he hadn't felt in a long time. A sense of being alive in the moment. As the path curved toward the river valley, Kai felt Hakuin's teachings follow him like a soft echo. When you return to the present, you return to yourself. He didn't know what Soen would teach him or what truths he would face next, but the journey no longer frightened him. He walked on, step by mindful step, into the vastness of the world and the quiet unfolding of his own awakening. Part 4. Meeting Soen by the river, learning how to let go and flow with life. The sun had begun its slow descent by the time Kai reached the valley. The forest path widened, giving way to the open stretch of grassland that shimmered in the afternoon light. In the distance he could hear the faint murmur of a river. Its voice was deep and steady, like the earth breathing. Kai followed the sound, allowing the teachings of Hakuin to guide his steps. He walked slower now, more aware of the ground beneath him. If a thought came, he noticed it. If it drifted away, he let it. There was something comforting in this simple practice, like learning how to walk again, not with the body but with the heart. As he approached the riverbank, he saw a solitary figure seated on a smooth, flat stone. The man looked as much a part of the landscape as the trees and water around him. His robe drifting gently in the wind, his posture relaxed yet grounded. He was watching the river with a soft gaze, as though listening to an old friend. Kai stopped a few steps away. "Are you Master Soen?" he asked quietly. The man didn't turn. He simply said, "The river teaches before I do." His voice was calm, carried by the wind like a whisper of water. Kai stepped closer, unsure what to say. Soen finally turned his head, and Kai saw eyes that were deep and steady. Eyes that seemed to hold the reflection of everything. The river, the sky, the wind. "Sit," Soen said. Kai obeyed, lowering himself onto a stone beside the master. For a moment they simply watched the water flow. The river was wide and slow, its surface broken occasionally by drifting leaves or the splash of a fish. Sunlight danced over it in shimmering patterns. Finally, Soen asked, "What do you see?" Kai hesitated. "Water," he said, "the movement, light, the current." Soen smiled faintly. "And what else?" Kai looked again, searching for something deeper. "I see things being carried," he said slowly. "The leaves, the petals, even the branches." Soen nodded. "Yes, and none of them ask the river where it is taking them." He dipped a hand into the water, letting the current slide through his fingers. "Kai," he said gently, "you struggle because you cling to everything the river tries to carry away." Kai felt a subtle weight in his chest. "What do you mean?" he asked. Soen lifted a leaf from the ground and placed it on the surface of the river. The leaf danced for a moment, then drifted downstream. "It goes where the river goes," Soen said. "No resistance, no fear, no clinging." He looked at Kai. "Are you like the leaf? Or do you try to swim against everything the river of life brings?" Kai lowered his gaze, hearing the truth hidden in the question. "I think I fight," he admitted. "I fight the nights I can't sleep. I fight the thoughts I don't want. I fight the memories that hurt. I fight the future I fear." "And how does fighting feel?" Soen asked. Kai inhaled shakily. "Exhausting," he whispered. "It feels like drowning with no water." Soen closed his eyes briefly, as if offering a silent prayer for the boy in front of him. "These battles," Soen said, "Omurnur, are not battles at all. They are knots you tied around yourself." He touched the river again. "And knots can be loosened." Kai looked at the water, feeling a longing, not to understand but to surrender. "How?" he asked. "How do I let go?" Soen stood and motioned for Kai to follow him along the riverbank. As they walked, Soen spoke softly. "Letting go is not throwing things away, it is allowing them to pass." He stopped at a place where the river split into two gentle currents around a large stone. "Kai," Soen said, "touch the stone." Kai placed his hand on the cool surface. It was unmoving, unyielding, standing firm against the flow. "This," Soen said, "is how you live. You hold your fears, you guard your memories, you grip your thoughts, you become the stone." He stepped aside, pointing to the water. "And life, it must split around you." Kai stared at the stone, realizing how true the words felt. "So what should I become?" he asked quietly. Soen smiled and knelt beside the river. "Become the water." He cupped some in his hands. It slipped through his fingers, shimmering in the light. "Water does not cling," Soen said. "It shapes itself to every moment. It does not resist. It does not force. It does not hold a past or fear a future." He looked at Kai with gentle intensity. "You suffer because you try to carry everything. Every thought, every worry, every version of yourself." Kai's eyes grew moist. "I'm tired of carrying," he whispered. Soen nodded. "Then set it down, here, now, with the river." He guided Kai to kneel at the edge of the water. "Close your eyes," Soen said. Kai obeyed. "I bring to mind one thing you are holding too tightly." Kai didn't need time to choose. A memory rose instantly, the sleepless nights, the fear of never resting again, the tightness in his chest every evening. "I see it," Kai said softly. Soen's voice flowed like the river. "Imagine placing that burden on a leaf. Watch the leaf drift away, not forced, not thrown, just offered to the water." Kai imagined it. He felt his breath tremble. The burden loosened, just a little, as though part of him was willing to release it. "Let the river carry it," Soen whispered. "Life knows what to do with what you release. You do not have to control its path." Kai felt something shift inside him. A small opening, a quiet surrender. He opened his eyes. Soen nodded with approval. "You have begun," he said. "But letting go is not a single act, it is a way of living." He pointed upstream. The river does not stop flowing, he pointed downstream, and it does not hold what passes. They stood together watching the water move. Soen, Kai asked, and how will I know when I've truly let go? Soen looked at him with a soft smile. When the past becomes light, he said. When the future stops frightening you. When your breath feels free, when your steps belong to this moment. Kai pressed a hand to his chest. For the first time in a long while, it felt slightly less heavy. What should I do now? He asked. Soen looked at the sky, where evening clouds were beginning to gather. There is another teacher you must meet, he said. One who will show you the truth beneath your thoughts. Kai nodded slowly. Where do I find him? Soen pointed toward the mountains in the east. Follow the mist, he said. There in a temple shrouded by clouds lives Master Dogen. Kai bowed deeply. Thank you, Master Soen. As he turned to leave, Soen called after him. Kai. Kai looked back. Remember, Soen said, you do not walk alone. Everything you release walks ahead of you, clearing the path. Kai breathed in, letting the river's cool scent fill his lungs. Then he continued his journey. His steps felt lighter, not because the path had changed, but because he had begun to release what he had been carrying for so long. The sky dimmed, the first stars appeared, and the sound of the river followed him like a gentle blessing. Part 5. The River Within. Letting go of the self you think you are. Kai walked eastward as evening approached, the sky slowly turning from gold to lavender. Soen's river faded behind him, but its lesson lingered in his chest, a quiet echo of movement and release. As he climbed the sloping paths that wove through the foothills, Kai noticed something interesting. His steps were lighter, his breath flowed more freely. The weight in his chest, always so heavy at night, felt gentler as though softened by the river's touch. He didn't yet understand what letting go truly meant, but he could feel that something inside him had shifted, even if by only a small degree. The hill path grew steeper, hugging the side of a cliff where clouds curled around ancient pines. A faint chill clung to the evening air. As Kai walked higher, mist began to thicken, turning the world into a quiet sea of white. Soen's words whispered through his mind. Follow the mist. The higher he climbed, the denser the fog grew. Soon he could barely see a few steps ahead. The world felt hushed, as though held in a sacred pause. And then, as if appearing from the mist itself, Kai saw the silhouette of a temple. Old stone walls covered in moss, wooden beams faded by centuries of wind and rain. Lanterns flickered softly near the entrance. A figure stood before the gate, tall, robed, motionless. Kai hesitated, unsure whether to speak. But the figure spoke first. You walked here carrying many illusions. The voice was calm, resonant, as though speaking directly from the mist. Kai stepped closer. Are you Master Dogen? He asked softly. The man turned, and Kai saw a face both youthful and ancient. Lines of wisdom etched gently into his skin, eyes deep as still water. I am called Dogen, he replied, but names are only waves. You have not come for a name. Kai bowed respectfully, uncertain how to begin. I want to understand myself, he said. I want to sleep again. My mind will not stop moving. Dogen nodded. Your problem is not the movement, he said. Your problem is believing that the movement is you. Kai blinked. I don't understand. Dogen turned toward the temple entrance. Come. Kai followed him inside. The temple was dim but warm, the air heavy with the scent of cedar and old incense. Scrolls lined the walls, though many were so weathered their ink had faded into soft shadows. They reached a meditation hall filled with quiet flamelight. Dogen gestured for Kai to sit. You learned presence from Hakuin, Dogen said, and you learned release from Soen. He settled cross-legged on the mat across from Kai. Now you must learn emptiness. Kai's heart tightened. Emptiness. Does that mean nothingness? Dogen shook his head gently. No. It means seeing through what is false. It means recognizing the one who suffers is not the one who observes. He picked up a small bowl filled with still water. What do you see? He asked. In my reflection, Kai said. Dogen tapped the bowl lightly. The surface rippled, the reflection broke. And now? He asked. Kai hesitated. Nothing, just movement. Dogen nodded. Is the self you cling to any different? Kai frowned. I don't think I understand. Dogen placed the bowl between them. Kai, he said softly. There is a you who thinks, feels, worry, remembers pain. And there is a deeper you who observes all of this. He leaned in slightly. The one who suffers is the reflection. The one who watches is the water. Kai felt a chill run down his spine. You mean, I am not my thoughts? Dogen smiled faintly. Thoughts arise, thoughts fall. Thoughts change shape like clouds. He touched his chest lightly, but the sky beneath them remains unchanged. Kai looked at the bowl again, seeing not just water, but something symbolic, something true. But if I'm not the thoughts, he asked slowly, why do they feel so real? Dogen stood and walked to a nearby window. Fog drifted past the wooden frame like slow-moving smoke. Because you believe them, he said. You hold them tightly, and anything you hold becomes heavy. He turned back to Kai. Who told you that every thought is truth, that every feeling is you, that every fear must be obeyed? Kai couldn't answer. Dogen approached him and placed a hand over his heart. This, he said, is where illusions take root, not in the mind. The mind is only a mirror. But the heart is where you cling. Kai swallowed, feeling tears rise unexpectedly. So how do I stop clinging? He whispered. Dogen motioned for him to stand. They walked to the back of the temple, where an open courtyard lay beneath drifting mist. In the center stood a cherry tree, bare branches reaching toward the sky, delicate even without blossoms. Dogen plucked a single fallen petal from the ground and placed it in Kai's hand. Hold it tightly, he instructed. Kai closed his fist around the petal. It crumpled instantly. Do now open your hand, Dogen said. Kai opened his palm. The petal lay flattened, fragile. You see, Dogen said softly. What you cling to, you destroy. He placed another petal in Kai's open palm. Now hold it with no effort. Kai let the petal rest gently on his hand. It remained whole, light, beautiful. This, Dogen said, is the mind that does not cling. Kai stared at the petal, tears slipping down his cheeks. Master, I've spent years crushing myself, haven't I? Dogen nodded. We all do until we learn otherwise. He stepped beside Kai and looked up at the misty sky. When you lie awake at night, who is awake? Dogen asked. Me? Kai said. No, Dogen corrected. Thoughts are awake, worries are awake, but the one who observes them, that one is always still. He gestured toward the courtyard. Sit with me. Kai sat. The mist moved around them like slow waves. Dogen's presence was calm, grounded. Close your eyes, Dogen said. Kai obeyed. Now listen. At first, Kai heard only his own breath, then the whisper of wind, then the faint call of a distant bird, then something deeper, a quiet behind the noise, a stillness beneath the thoughts. Dogen's voice came like a soft echo. You are not the wind. You are not the bird. You are not the thought. You are the awareness that hears all of it. Kai felt his breath deepen. His hands softened. His heart widened. The world felt spacious, as though something inside him had opened. When he finally opened his eyes, Dogen was watching him with kindness. You touched it, Dogen said. Kai nodded, still breathing slowly. I felt a stillness, but only for a moment. Dogen smiled gently. A moment is enough. Stillness is always here. You only forget. He placed both hands on Kai's shoulders. There is more to learn, Dogen said. You will meet someone who teaches acceptance, one who lives in the busiest part of the world yet remains untouched by chaos. Kai felt a new curiosity rise. Who? His name is Bank, Dogen said, a monk who lives in the middle of a crowded town. Kai raised an eyebrow. A monk in a busy town? Dogen nodded. Yes. Serenity found only in quiet places is not serenity. Serenity found anywhere is true freedom. He bowed gently. Go now. Bank will show you how to stop fighting the life you're given. Kai bowed deeply in return. As he left the misty temple, the world felt different. Not because it had changed, but because something within him had begun to loosen. The path ahead was still long, but for the first time Kai sensed that he wasn't walking toward peace. He was walking home to it. Part 6. Meeting Bank in the busy town. Learning the art of acceptance in the middle of noise. The misty mountain paths gradually gave way to lower hills and warmer valleys. As Kai descended from Dogen's temple, the world around him reclaimed color. Green fields stretching into the horizon, clusters of homes with smoke rising from chimneys and the distant hum of life awakening. Dogen's teachings echoed quietly in Kai's heart. You are the awareness beneath all things. You are the sky, not the clouds. Those words comforted him as he walked. Still, he knew the journey was far from complete. According to Dogen, the next teacher, Master Bank, did not hide in forests or remote temples. Instead, he lived in a marketplace filled with noise, chaos, and constant movement. A monk living in a busy town, Kai murmured. The idea was strange, almost contradictory. He imagined monks surrounded by incense, prayer bells, and silent halls, not by merchants shouting prices or children running through crowded streets. Yet Dogen's parting words lingered. A serenity found only in quiet places is not serenity. By mid-afternoon, Kai reached the outskirts of the town. The road buzzed with life. Farmers carrying vegetables, travelers with worn sandals, peddlers pushing carts, and families chatting as they walked home. The smells of steamed buns, roasted chestnuts, spices, and freshly baked bread drifted through the air. It was overwhelming. After days of silence, the noise pressed against Kai like a wave. He felt his chest tighten, his breath shorten. His thoughts raced. How can anyone meditate here? How can peace survive in a place like this? How am I supposed to learn anything with so much noise? He closed his eyes for a moment, trying to ground himself in the way Hakuin had taught. A breath, a step, the present moment. But the shouting and clatter broke his focus again and again. Excuse me, Kai asked a merchant. Do you know where I can find a monk named Bank? The merchant laughed. You mean the mad monk? The one who sits by the well all day? Just follow the noise, he's right in the center of everything. The mad monk? Kai thanked him and continued, weaving through crowds until he reached the town square. There, at the very heart of the chaos, between a fish seller shouting over prices, a group of children chasing each other, and two men arguing loudly, sat an old monk. He wasn't meditating in the traditional sense. He was simply sitting on a low wooden stool, back straight, eyes half open, breathing easily. Nothing about him seemed rigid. He was not resisting the noise around him. He was simply there, as though in conversation with life itself. Kai approached respectfully and bowed. Master Bank, he asked. The monk opened his eyes fully. Yes, he said calmly, and you must be Kai. Kai froze. How did you? Bank waved a dismissive hand. When you sit in one place long enough, the river of people tells you everything. Kai didn't understand, but something about Bank's presence intrigued him. Even here, in the loudest part of town, the monk radiated a kind of stillness that felt different from Hakuin's grounded presence or Soen's flowing calm. It felt like resting in what is. Kai bowed again. Master, I've come to learn acceptance. Dogen said you could teach me how to stop fighting everything. Bank laughed. A warm, booming laugh that drew curious glances from nearby merchants. You came to the right place, he said. Sit. Kai sat on an overturned basket beside him. At once the noise returned to full volume. Children yelling, vendors calling, wheels rolling, animals bleating, pots clanging. Voices rising and falling like waves crashing on rocks. Kai flinched at each sound. His shoulders tensed, his jaw tightened. Bank watched him with gentle amusement. Tell me, Bank said, and what is bothering you? Kai gestured helplessly. All of this, the noise, the chaos, how can anyone find peace here? Bank raised an eyebrow. And who said peace depends on silence? Kai opened his mouth to answer, then closed it. He hadn't expected the monk to ask such a simple yet piercing question. Bank leaned closer. Hey Kai, the world does not disturb you. Your mind's resistance to the world disturbs you. Kai felt his breath catch. Bank continued. You think it should not be noisy. You think it should be quiet for me to be calm. You think things should be different, and every should becomes a chain you wrap around your own heart. He pointed to the marketplace. Listen. Kai listened. It's too loud, he muttered. Bank shook his head. No, that is a thought, not a truth. Kai tried again, this time paying more attention. He noticed how the sounds layered. The shouting wasn't one sound, it was many. The footsteps weren't overwhelming, they were rhythmic. The marketplace wasn't chaos. It was a living organism, breathing, shifting, moving with its own intelligence. Bank said softly, Close your eyes, Kai. Kai did. Now listen without judging, without wanting anything to change, without labeling anything as good or bad. Kai inhaled slowly. He heard the merchants shouting, but now it felt less aggressive. He heard children laughing and felt a small warmth in his chest. He heard the crackle of oil from a street vendor frying dumplings, and it made him hungry. He heard footsteps on stone forming a natural rhythm. He heard the wind rustling a banner overhead, a soft counterpoint to the harsher sounds. He breathed out. It's different, he whispered. It's still loud, but it doesn't hurt. Bank smiled. And that is acceptance. Kai opened his eyes. Bank continued. Kai, suffering does not come from sound. It comes from saying this sound should not exist. He placed a hand over Kai's heart. Peace is not found by controlling the world. Peace is found by releasing your demand that the world must match your preference. Kai felt something unclench inside him. Bank stood and stretched. Come, he said, there is more to see. They walked through the marketplace together. Bank greeted everyone, children, merchants, beggars, travelers. He smiled when a dog barked at him. He laughed when a baby cried. He bowed when a man spilled water at his feet. Not once did he resist anything. Kai, Bank said, life will never match your desires perfectly. The day you stop fighting the world is the day the world stops fighting you. Kai nodded slowly, letting the words rest in him. As they returned to the well in the square, Bank placed a palm on Kai's shoulder. You have learned presence from Hakuin. You have learned flow from Soen. You have learned emptiness from Dogen. Now you have learned acceptance. Kai bowed deeply. Thank you, Master Bank. Bank smiled. You're not done yet, go now. Find Ajo in the next valley. He will teach you the softest lesson of all. Kai tilted his head. The softest lesson? Bank nodded. Yes, the one you have avoided your whole life. He looked into Kai's eyes. Compassion for yourself. Kai felt his throat tighten. He didn't know why the words affected him so deeply, but he bowed again and turned toward the path leading out of town. Behind him, the marketplace buzzed with life. Yet somehow it felt lighter, less threatening, as though the noise itself had accepted him back. Kai took a slow breath. For the first time, the chaos didn't disturb him. It simply existed, and that was enough. Part 7. Meeting Ajo, the monk of gentle compassion. Learning to speak kindly to the heart within the road. Leaving Bank's bustling town wound into a peaceful valley where the air felt softer and the world quieter with each step Kai took. After the noise of the marketplace, the stillness here was almost tender. Like a cool cloth placed gently on a fevered brow, trees lined the path in arching canopies. Sunlight filtered through the leaves in shifting patterns. The breeze was light and warm, carrying the faint scent of wild herbs. Kai walked slowly, replaying Bank's words in his mind. A suffering does not come from sound. It comes from saying, this sound should not exist. He had not realized until then how deeply he fought against the world. Not only the noise, but everything. His insomnia, his thoughts, his emotions, his fears, his imperfections. Especially his imperfections. Whenever he failed, he scolded himself. Whenever he felt fear, he called himself weak. Whenever he worried, he blamed himself for not being stronger. He had become his own harshest critic, and for the first time he wondered, why do I speak to myself the way no teacher ever would? The wind answered only with a gentle rustle of leaves. He walked further into the valley until he reached a clearing where a small temple stood beside a quiet pond. The water was still, reflecting the sky like a polished mirror. A wooden bridge arched gracefully over it, simple yet beautiful. On that bridge sat a monk dressed in light blue robes, legs folded beneath him, hands resting on his lap. His face was calm, serene, almost childlike in its softness. Kai approached quietly. "Master Ajo?" he asked. The monk opened his eyes. They were warm, so warm that Kai felt as if a lantern had been lit inside his chest. "Yes," Ajo said, "and you must be Kai." Kai bowed respectfully. "How do all the teachers know me before I arrive?" Ajo smiled gently. "Because your footsteps carry your longing. It is easy to hear a heart that wants to heal." Kai felt his throat tighten. "I've come to learn compassion," he said softly. "Master Bank said that was your teaching." Ajo nodded. "It is the teaching you need most." He patted the wooden bridge beside him. "Sit with me." Kai sat. The wood was smooth beneath him, warmed by the afternoon sun. For a long moment they simply watched the pond. A single lotus floated near the surface, petals half closed as though mid-breath. Ripples spread outward whenever a gentle breeze touched the water. Ajo finally spoke. "Kai, tell me, when you cannot sleep, how do you speak to yourself?" Kai looked down at his hands. "I say things like, why can't you stop thinking? Why are you like this? You're failing again. You're weak. You should be stronger than this." Ajo listened without interrupting, though his expression grew more and more saddened. When Kai finished, Ajo asked quietly, "If a child came to you crying in the night, unable to sleep, would you speak to him that way?" Kai shook his head instantly. "Of course not. And if a friend came to you trembling with worry, would you say those words to him?" "Never." Ajo leaned closer, voice soft as silk. "Then why do you say them to yourself?" Kai had no answer. Ajo picked up a small pebble and rolled it between his fingers. "You think your harshness makes you strong," he said. "You think criticizing yourself will force you to change." He dropped the pebble into the pond. "But harshness does not create strength. It creates wounds." Ripples spread across the water, distorting the lotus's reflection. Ajo continued, "Kai, every cruel word you say to yourself becomes a stone on your chest. Every judgment, every insult, every moment of self-hatred weighs you down." He turned to Kai. "And no one can rest under so much weight, not even in sleep." Kai felt a sting behind his eyes. I didn't know, he whispered. Ajo smiled, not with pity but with compassion so warm it felt like sunlight. Of course you didn't. Most people never learn to speak kindly to themselves. They learn to be strict, responsible, productive. But they forget how to be gentle. Ajo placed a hand lightly on Kai's arm. And gentleness, Kai, is what allows the heart to rest. A tear slipped down Kai's cheek. He wiped it away quickly, embarrassed. Ajo shook his head. No, let it fall. Kai froze. Your tears are not weakness, Ajo said. They are release. With those simple words, more tears came. Quiet, warm, unstoppable. Kai let them fall, the way the river had taught him to let go. Ajo sat silently beside him, offering presence but no pressure. His calmness felt like a sanctuary. When Kai's tears finally slowed, Ajo spoke. Now, Kai, imagine someone you love deeply, anyone, a friend, a teacher, even a stranger you once helped. Kai closed his eyes and imagined Hakuin's calm gaze. What would you say to him? Ajo asked softly, if he felt exactly what you feel. Kai whispered, I would tell him he's doing his best, that it's okay to struggle, that he doesn't need to be perfect, that he deserves rest. Ajo nodded. Good, now say those words to yourself. Kai opened his eyes, startled. I can't. Ajo's voice remained gentle. You can, you just never have. Kai inhaled shakily. He placed a hand over his heart, feeling its tender thudding. And quietly, awkwardly, he whispered, I'm doing my best. The words felt strange, unfamiliar, almost fragile. Ajo smiled. Again. Kai swallowed. It's okay to struggle. Again. I don't need to be perfect. Ajo nodded approvingly. Once more. Kai's voice trembled. I deserve rest. And as he spoke those words, something inside him loosened. Something old, tight, and aching. It felt like a knot unraveling after years of tension. Ajo leaned back on his hands, gazing at the sky. Kai, he said, the heart is like a flower. It does not bloom under harsh sun or cold wind. It blooms with warmth. He tapped Kai's chest lightly. Give yourself the warmth you have denied for so long. Kai breathed in deeply, letting the air fill him with softness. Ajo continued. When you lie awake at night, do not fight your thoughts. Do not insult yourself. Place a hand here. He touched his heart. And speak kindly. Say, it's okay. Say, I'm here with you. Say, you are safe. Kai listened, letting each word settle. Ajo stood gracefully and motioned toward the pond. Come. Kai followed him to the water's edge. Ajo pointed to the lotus. See how it holds itself, not tightly, not fearfully. It opens because the world around it is gentle. He looked at Kai. Be gentle with yourself, then you too will open. He placed a hand on Kai's shoulder. You have one more teacher to meet, the final one. Her name is Grandmother Ren. Kai blinked. Grandmother? Yes, Ajo said with a smile. She teaches the highest truth of all, the sacredness of ordinary life. Kai bowed deeply, gratitude overflowing. Thank you, Master Ajo. Ajo returned the bow. Go now, Kai. You carry softness where there was once only burden. Let that softness guide your steps. Kai turned onto the path leading out of the valley. Behind him, the monk remained seated on the bridge, calm as a lotus on still water. As Kai walked away, his footsteps no longer echoed with worry. They echoed with something gentler, something he had never given himself before, compassion. Part 8. Meeting Grandmother Ren. Learning that simplicity is the highest form of wisdom. Kai walked through the valley long after he had left Ajo's temple behind. The evening sun rested low on the horizon, painting the sky with soft streaks of gold and peach. The wind moved gently through the tall grass, brushing against his hands as he walked, almost as if guiding him forward. Each step felt different now. Softer, lighter, as though the compassion Ajo had awakened in him was already changing the way his feet touched the earth. But this part of the journey held a different feeling. Not anticipation, not fear, but something quieter. A kind of opening, Ajo had told him. A grandmother Wren will show you the sacredness of ordinary life. Kai was unsure what that meant. All his other teachers had lived in temples, by rivers, in solitude, or in places filled with tension and lessons. He imagined Grandmother Wren to be another monk, perhaps a woman of deep meditation sitting in lotus posture all day, eyes closed, chanting ancient scriptures. But the path led him not toward a temple, not toward a mountain, but toward a small village tucked into the hillside. It was simple and quiet. Homes made of straw and wood, laundry lines drifting in the wind, chickens wandering freely, smoke rising lazily from cooking fires. A place so ordinary it might not appear in any story. Why would a great teacher live in a place like this, Kai wondered. As he walked into the village, he saw children playing with sticks, a man fixing a wheel, a woman washing vegetables in a wooden bowl. Everyone moved with simple purpose. Unhurried, unbothered. Kai approached an old woman sweeping her porch. "Excuse me," he said politely. "Do you know where I can find Grandmother Wren?" The old woman looked up. Her face was lined, but her eyes were bright, so bright they seemed to laugh even when her lips didn't move. She leaned on her broom. "And who is asking?" she said. Kai bowed. "My name is Kai. I've come to learn from her." The woman smiled. "Well then," she said, tapping her broom lightly on the ground, "here I am." Kai blinked in surprise. Your Grandmother Wren?" She chuckled. "Did you expect someone wearing golden robes, someone floating in the air, someone speaking in riddles?" Kai flushed. I'm sorry, I just thought—" Grandmother Wren waved a hand dismissively. Yes. Everyone thinks that wisdom must look dramatic, that enlightenment requires thunder or incense or mountains. She stepped aside. "Come inside, child, you look tired." Kai hesitated for only a moment before following her. Her home was small, just one room with a stove, a low table, 2 cushions, and a window overlooking a small garden. The air smelled of rice porridge and fresh herbs. "Sit," she said. Kai sat on one of the cushions. Grandmother Wren ladled warm porridge into a wooden bowl and placed it in front of him. "Eat." Kai stared at it. "I thought we might meditate first," he said. She raised an eyebrow. "Are you hungry?" "Yes." "Then eat." Kai lowered his gaze, embarrassed. He took a spoonful of porridge. It was warm, simple, comforting, and oddly grounding. Grandmother Wren sat opposite him, sipping tea from a chipped cup. After a moment, she said gently, "So tell me why you've come." Kai swallowed. "I want peace," he said. "I want to sleep. My mind keeps moving. My heart feels heavy. I came to learn your wisdom." Grandmother Wren nodded slowly. "And what wisdom do you think I have?" Kai hesitated. "Ajo said you teach the highest truth, the sacredness of ordinary life." Grandmother Wren laughed so loudly that a chicken outside squawked. "Oh, that boy always says dramatic things, although he's not wrong." She leaned forward, resting her elbows on the table. "Kai," she said, "you have learned many beautiful things on your journey. Presence, letting go, emptiness, acceptance, compassion. Each teacher gave you a different gem." She tapped her cup lightly. "But what good is a gem if you don't wear it, if you don't live it, if it doesn't enter the smallest, simplest moments of your day?" She pointed to the bowl of porridge. "Can you eat this bowl of porridge with presence, with letting go, with emptiness, with compassion for yourself?" Kai stared at the bowl. He had no answer. Grandmother Wren smiled. "You see? The truth is this: wisdom means nothing if it cannot enter your most ordinary moments." She stood and motioned for him to follow. They walked outside into her garden. It was a simple place, Rows of herbs, a few vegetables, a stone path leading to an old well. Nothing grand, nothing impressive, yet somehow it felt, peaceful, alive, complete. Grandmother Wren knelt beside a patch of soil. "I dig," she said, handing Kai a small tool. Kai blinked. "Master, shouldn't I meditate first?" "You are meditating," she said. Dig." Kai knelt and began to loosen the soil. The earth was cool, soft. It crumbled between his fingers. Grandmother Wren pulled out a weed and tossed it aside. "You think Zen is found on mountaintops," she said. "You think peace is earned through struggle." She picked up a handful of dirt and let it fall. "But Zen lives here, in your hands, in the soil, in the breath you take as you work." She looked at him. "Kai, tell me, how do you live?" Kai hesitated, unsure what she meant. I try my best," he said. "No," she said gently, "that is not my question." She pointed to his chest. "How do you live in here? Do you live with tension, with deadlines, with fear, with endlessly trying to become someone better than who you already are?" Kai froze. She had seen everything. Grandmother Wren softened her voice. Wisdom is not something you learn. Wisdom is something you allow to touch your life." She stood and walked toward the well. "Come." Kai followed. She drew up a bucket of water and handed Kai a cup. "Drink slowly," she said. Kai obeyed. The water was cold and crisp, clean, alive. And suddenly he understood something. Every place he had visited, every teacher he had learned from had given him beautiful teachings. But none of those teachings lived in his daily life. He knew how to walk mindfully, but he rushed. He knew how to breathe, but he forced his breath. He knew how to let go, but he clung to his expectations. He knew compassion, but he rarely gave it to himself. He knew emptiness, but he filled his days with worry. Grandmother Wren watched his expression shift. "You see it now," she said softly. "Yes," Kai whispered. She nodded. "A peace, Kai, does not come from temples or teachers. Peace comes from how you eat, how you breathe, how you speak, how you wash your bowl, how you walk to the well." She touched his arm gently. "Ordinary life is the highest temple." Kai felt tears rise again, but these were not tears of pain. They were tears of relief. Grandmother Wren smiled kindly. "You have one task while you are here," she said. Kai looked up. "What is it?" She pointed to the porch. "Help me shell these peas." Kai blinked. "That's all?" "Yes," she said, already sitting down. "And do it with your whole heart." So Kai sat beside her. They worked side by side in silence, shelling peas, listening to birds, feeling the warm afternoon air brush against their skin. And something miraculous happened. For the first time in many years, Kai felt utterly present, utterly peaceful, utterly alive. Not because he understood a great teaching, but because he lived it. As the sun set behind the hills, Grandmother Wren looked at him with fondness. "You are ready," she said. Kai bowed deeply. "Thank you, truly." She touched his cheek gently. "When you return to your village, do not seek peace. Live peacefully, that is enough." Kai breathed in slowly, and for the first time in a very long time, he felt ready to go home. Part 9. The Quiet Journey Home. Carrying simplicity back into the world, morning light broke gently over Grandmother Wren's village. Soft beams filtered through thin clouds, warming the rooftops and touching the earth with a delicate gold. Kai stood at the edge of the garden, breathing slowly as the cool air carried the scent of dew and soil. He had slept, not perfectly, not deeply, but peacefully, and that peace did not come from a special posture, nor from a mantra, nor from a temple high in the mountains. It came from a bowl of warm porridge, from a handful of peas, from a bucket of clear water. It came from ordinary life lived with presence, Grandmother Wren stepped outside, stretching her arms as if greeting the rising sun. "Ah, you're awake," she said. "Did your bones rest well?" Kai smiled. "They did." She nodded. "Good. Then your heart is learning." Kai bowed deeply. "Grandmother," he said, "I cannot thank you enough. You've shown me something I didn't even know I'd forgotten." She chuckled and tapped his forehead gently with one finger. "I've forgotten? Child, you never learned it to begin with. You've spent your whole life chasing meanings when they were sitting quietly in your bowl of rice." Kai laughed softly. Only she could say something so simple and make it feel like truth. Grandmother Wren handed him a small cloth bag. "Here," she said, "rice, herbs, a little tea. The road home is long. You'll need something to keep your feet cheerful."
Kai accepted the gift with gratitude.
"Will I see you again?" he asked. She shrugged lightly. "Perhaps, but you don't need me anymore. You carry the medicine now." Kai touched his chest. "Here? Of course, where else would it be?" The old woman turned and walked back toward her porch. Kai called out one last question. "What should I do when I return home?" She turned her head slightly, the morning sun catching the silver in her hair. "Live, notice, be gentle, and remember the simple things will teach you more than any master." Then she waved him away as if swatting a fly. "Now go on, the world is waiting." Kai bowed one final time and started down the path leading out of the village. The world feels new. As Kai walked, he noticed everything differently. The rustle of leaves above him felt like a quiet conversation with the wind. The rhythm of his own footsteps felt like soft drumming in his chest. The warmth of sun on his skin felt like a kind hand resting on him. He wasn't forcing awareness. He wasn't striving to be mindful. He wasn't pushing thoughts away. Presence had become a natural companion, walking beside him without effort. He thought of Hakuin's teaching first. A single step is a complete moment, and he walked. One step, one breath, one moment at a time. Then he remembered Soen's voice. "Become the water." The path was long and winding, yet he allowed his body to move with it instead of fighting the distance. His breath flowed lightly. Not perfect, just natural. He thought of Dogen. The one who observes remains unchanged. When a worry appeared, "Will I sleep when I return home? Will the nights feel heavy again?" He watched the thought rise and fall like a cloud drifting across the valley sky. It no longer controlled him. It no longer defined him. He simply let it be. Then came the memory of Bank. The peace is not found by controlling the world. A farmer shouted instructions to his ox nearby. A cart rattled past on uneven stones. A flock of birds screeched overhead, but none of it disturbed him. Noise was just noise. Life was just life. It was his resistance that once created suffering, and that resistance had softened. Finally, Ejo's teaching floated in gently. "You speak kindly to the heart within." Kai placed a hand over his chest and whispered softly to himself, "You're doing well, you're learning. It's okay to take your time." A warmth spread through him. He had never spoken to himself that way before. With tenderness, with compassion, with genuine care. A small village on the horizon. By noon, Kai reached a ridge overlooking a small valley. At its center lay his village, the place where his sleepless nights began. He felt a tremor in his chest. The memory of pacing through long nights returned, but instead of fear, he felt something gentler, a soft curiosity. What will it feel like now? Will the nights be different? Will I be different? The wind brushed his cheek as if answering. He began the descent. Villagers noticed him first with surprise, then with joy. "Kai, you're back!" "Where have you been? We worried about you." He bowed to each person, smiling, but something had changed. Before his journey, he would have felt overwhelmed by their questions, pressured to explain himself, afraid of disappointing them. Now he simply listened, letting their voices wash over him without needing to hold or resist anything. He greeted the baker, the blacksmith, the teacher's wife who always gave him pastries as a child. Everything felt familiar yet strangely new. Returning to his own home. When Kai reached his home at the edge of the village, he paused for a long moment. The same door, the same walls, the same small window where moonlight used to fall during sleepless nights. He stepped inside. The room smelled faintly of dust and old cedar. His mat lay where he'd left it. The wooden table, the teapot, the folded blanket, all untouched. But the air felt different. He placed his bag on the table and sat on the edge of his mat. He breathed in, then out. He didn't try to meditate. He didn't try to calm himself. He didn't try to force sleep. He simply sat and allowed the moment to be what it was. For the first time in many months, the silence of the room felt comforting rather than threatening. He ran a hand along the floor, feeling its cool surface. Then he whispered, almost as if speaking to a friend, "I'm home." He lay down on his mat. The evening sun filtered through the window, painting soft gold across the room. For a moment he wondered, will tonight be different? A familiar doubt rose, but instead of pushing it away or criticizing himself, he placed a hand gently on his heart. "It's okay," he murmured. "Whatever happens, it's okay." His breath softened. The room grew quieter. His body grew heavier. The world felt softer, for the first time in a long while. Kai felt himself drifting, not because he forced sleep, but because he finally allowed rest to enter. The journey had not just taught him lessons, it had changed him. And as his eyes closed slowly, he understood. Peace was not something he found. Peace was something he carried home. Part 10. Living the Teachings in Ordinary Moments. Peace is found not in temples but in daily life. The first morning after returning home arrived gently. Kai woke not to fear or tension, but to the soft chirping of sparrows outside his window, and the faint warmth of sunlight slipping across the floor. He blinked slowly, letting the moment settle. For so many months, waking had felt like surfacing from a deep, troubled sea. But today he felt something different. Not dramatic, not miraculous, just clear. He sat up and stretched, feeling the quiet rhythm of his breath. His mind did not rush forward. His heart did not clench. He placed a hand over his chest. "Good morning," he whispered to himself, a habit Ajo had taught him. His voice was gentle, almost shy. But the words felt right, like offering kindness to a weary friend. After washing his face, Kai stepped outside into the crisp air. The village was already alive with simple sounds. The creak of a wooden cart, the bubbling of a pot in someone's kitchen, the rhythmic chop of a knife slicing vegetables. Footsteps on the stone path. Each sound, once ignored or resented during his sleepless nights, now felt like part of a quiet song, an unfolding melody of life continuing effortlessly. He walked toward the small garden behind his home. The soil was dry in some places, tangled in others. It looked neglected, a clear reminder of the nights he spent restless and the mornings he woke too exhausted to tend to it. Kai knelt, pressing his fingers into the earth. It was cool and crumbly, clinging to his skin the way memories cling to the heart. He smiled softly. Grandmother Wren's voice echoed inside him. Ordinary life is the highest temple. He began pulling weeds slowly, purposefully, not rushing, not thinking about how much needed to be done, just tending to one patch of soil at a time. As he worked, he remembered Hakuin. A step is a moment, a breath is a moment, be here. So he was here, fully. The sun rose higher, warming his shoulders. The breeze carried the scent of tea brewing somewhere nearby. A rooster crowed in the distance. Every detail felt alive, vivid, present. When the garden looked a little less wild, Kai stood and brushed the dirt from his hands. He felt no urgency to make it perfect, only gratitude that it was enough for today. A gift from the heart. As Kai walked back toward his home, he saw an elderly neighbor, Mrs. Tanami, carrying a basket of laundry. She squinted at him with mild surprise. "Kai, you're back," she said. Her voice held both affection and relief. "Yes," Kai replied, bowing. "I returned last night." She nodded, shifting the basket on her hip. "You look different," she observed. Kai wasn't sure what she meant, but before he could ask, she handed him one of the cloths from her basket. "Hold this for a moment." Kai took it gently. Mrs. Tanami tugged at a stubborn corner of her wrap, readjusting it. Then she nodded for him to hand the cloth back. "Thank you," she said simply. Kai blinked. "That's all?" he asked. "Yes," she replied, and it was enough. She walked away, humming softly. Kai stood in the path, holding her words in his chest. Enough. He had spent so much of his life believing he had to be extraordinary, calm all the time, strong all the time, perfect all the time. But helping carry a cloth just for a moment was enough. Being present was enough. Breathing was enough. Living was enough. Maybe he was enough. The weight that finally lifts. Around midday, Kai returned inside to prepare a bowl of rice with herbs. He moved slowly, feeling the texture of each grain, the warmth of the pot, the rise of steam against his face. Banks' teaching visited him gently. Peace is not found by controlling the world. It is found when you stop demanding it to be different. Kai realized how often he had lived in resistance, against noise, against thoughts, against his own heart. But now, as he stirred the pot, there was nothing to resist. Only the soft bubbling of rice cooking, the scent of herbs opening in the steam, and a small window glowing with afternoon sun. He ate his meal slowly, not perfectly mindful, not trying to be enlightened, just eating, the way Grandmother Wren taught him. When he finished, he washed the bowl with warm water. As he dried it, he smiled. Ajo's voice drifted through him. "Be gentle." For the first time, he wasn't rushing through life. He wasn't trying to be Zen. He was simply living, and living gently. A visit from the children. In the afternoon, 2 village children came to Kai's door. Their faces were flushed from running, and they held a wooden toy with a wheel missing. "Can you fix this?" the younger one asked. Kai examined the toy carefully. The wheel had slipped off because the peg holding it was loose. Before his journey, he might have felt annoyed or pressured. But now, he simply sat with the children on the floor and began gently adjusting the peg. They watched with wide eyes as he worked. "Is it hard?" one of them asked. Kai smiled softly. "Not when you take your time." They nodded as though this were a secret they had long been waiting to hear. When the toy was fixed, the children cheered and hugged him. Their happiness was simple, pure, unburdened by thoughts of yesterday or tomorrow. Kai felt warmth bloom inside him. This, helping a child fix a toy, was also Zen. This simplicity, this connection, this presence, this was the teaching in motion. Evening descends gently. As the sky deepened into shades of violet and blue, Kai stepped outside again. The air was cool now, fragrant with evening blossoms. The world seemed to hold its breath for a moment, as though honoring the beauty of dusk. He sat beneath a willow tree near his home. The leaves swayed slowly above him, brushing together with a soft whispering sound. Kai closed his eyes. He wasn't trying to meditate. He wasn't trying to sleep. He was just sitting with the world as it was. Thoughts came, as they always would, but he didn't cling. He didn't judge. He simply watched them pass like clouds moving across the evening sky. A familiar ache rose briefly in his chest, a trace of the old fear of sleepless nights. Kai placed a hand gently over his heart, the way Ajo had taught him. "You're safe," he whispered. "You're doing well. It's all right to rest." The fear loosened, softening like fabric in warm water. Kai stood and walked back into his home, lighting a small candle. The flame flickered gently, casting golden shapes across the walls. He lay down on his mat, not forcing sleep, not fearing wakefulness, just resting. His breath deepened naturally. The air grew warm. The candlelight danced softly behind his eyelids. His body grew heavier. His mind grew quieter. And in the gentle darkness of his home, Kai felt peace settle over him like a blanket woven from all the teachings he had gathered. Hakuin's presence, Soen's flow, Dogen's emptiness, Bank's acceptance, Ijo's compassion, Ren's simplicity. All of it lived in him now, and as sleep slowly approached, not forced, not demanded, but welcomed like an old friend, Kai exhaled a long, soft breath. He was not the same boy who left the village. He had returned with the deepest truth of all. Peace is not found far away. Peace is practiced in every small moment. His breathing slowed. His body relaxed. His thoughts faded. And in the quiet, Kai drifted into the softest, most natural sleep he had known in many years. Part 11. Nightfall, and a new kind of silence. Learning to rest in the darkness without fear. Part 11. Nightfall, and a new kind of silence. Learning to rest in the darkness without fear, night returned gently to the village. Not as an enemy, not as a weight, but as an old familiar visitor Kai was learning to welcome again. The sky shifted slowly from pale blue to deep indigo, stars emerging one by one like lanterns fluttering awake in the heavens. The evening breeze carried a faint chill, brushing over the rooftops and whispering through the trees. Kai stood outside his home, watching the first glow of the moon climb over the distant hills. A few months ago, this moment would have tightened his chest. He would have felt fear rising, anticipation building, dread slowly unfurling inside his ribs. Night meant struggle. Night meant racing thoughts. Night meant the long battle between exhaustion and restlessness. But tonight was different. Tonight, the familiar ache in his heart had softened into something warm. A quiet recognition, a gentle surrender. He traced a slow breath in and out, letting it move naturally without trying to shape it. Hakuin's voice came to him. A single breath is enough to anchor you in the present moment. The next breath felt even easier. Kai walked toward a small bench under the willow tree that grew beside his house. The branches swayed gently overhead, casting shadows that drifted across the ground like soft waves. He sat and placed both hands on his knees, relaxing his shoulders. The sounds of the village began to settle. Children finishing their play, doors closing, dogs curling up to sleep, distant conversation fading into murmurs, the soft hum of night insects rising in the quiet. Kai listened without judging any sound as good or bad. Noise did not disturb him anymore, because resistance did not disturb him anymore. Bank's teaching drifted through him like a warm breeze. The peace is found when you stop demanding life to match your preference. A smile touched Kai's lips. The night was not perfect. It didn't need to be. A distant owl called. A pot clanged somewhere nearby. The wind brushed past, uneven at times, but everything felt allowed. Everything had a place. Everything simply was. The gentle weight of compassion. As he sat under the tree, Kai felt a small tremor of emotion rise within him. He placed a hand over his heart, the way Ejo had taught him. "You're safe," he whispered softly. "You've made it through many nights before. You can rest now." The words carried warmth, not forced, not practiced, but true. He remembered the first time Ejo had asked him to speak kindly to himself. It felt impossible then. It felt foreign. It felt like pretending. But now, kindness flowed more naturally, like water finding its way home. And something within him, something long forgotten and long neglected, and softened in response. He rested his back against the tree and let his breath slow even more. A small fear rose suddenly, a ghost from the past. What if the sleepless nights return? Kai didn't flinch. He didn't tense. He didn't scold himself. He simply noticed the thought and allowed it to drift through him like mist. Dogen's teaching settled in. And you are the sky, not the cloud. Thoughts arise and dissolve within you. The fear dissolved. The sky within him remained open. The quiet ritual of ordinary life. Kai stood and returned inside his home. He lit a small candle beside his sleeping mat, letting its warm glow fill the room. He folded his blanket slowly, prepared a cup of warm tea, placed his cup on the low table, and sat with it quietly. Every movement was simple, but all of it carried the presence he had learned from Hakuin, the ease he had learned from Soen, the spaciousness he had learned from Dogen, the acceptance from Bank, the compassion from Ajo, the grounded simplicity from Grandmother Ren. He drank the tea slowly, feeling each sip move down his throat, warming his chest. Nothing else existed in that moment. Not tomorrow, not yesterday, not the weight of 1,000 worries. Just the taste of warm tea and the sound of his breath. Grandmother Wren's voice floated through him like a lullaby. Wisdom means nothing if it cannot enter your most ordinary moments. Kai smiled softly and placed the empty cup aside. He lay down on his mat, stretching out gently. The candle flickered beside him, casting calm shadows against the wall. He took one slow breath, then another, letting his body sink into the mat. Thoughts came and went. Did I tend the garden enough today? Should I visit Mrs. Tanami tomorrow? I wonder if it will rain. He watched each thought drift through gently, not clinging, not pushing away, just witnessing. Soen's voice murmured in memory. Let everything flow, let everything pass. Do not force, do not cling. Kai breathed deeper. The weight of his body grew heavier, as though gravity itself wished to soothe him. Sleep did not come immediately, but it also did not hide from him. It waited peacefully at the edge of his awareness, patient as the moon. Kai placed his hand on his heart one last time. It's okay, he whispered. Rest will come when it's ready. I don't need to fight anymore. A warm wave swept through him. Quiet, soft, almost like someone placing a blanket over his soul. Night folded around him gently. The silence was no longer the kind that frightened him or made his thoughts loud. It was the kind of silence that held him. A silence filled with the teachings of the journey. A silence filled with the presence he had learned. A silence filled with the softness he had finally allowed inside. His eyelids grew heavy. His breath deepened. The candle flickered softer, then steadier, casting a warm golden glow that shimmered like peace itself. Kai felt his mind drifting, not in chaos, not in fear, but in surrender. And as he slipped between waking and dreaming, he understood something profound. The journey did not give him peace. The journey helped him remember it. The peace had been inside him all along, waiting patiently through the sleepless nights, through the restlessness, through the fear. Now at last he could hear it. Now, at last, he could rest. Part 12. The Deepest Rest. Kai returns home to himself. The moon hung full and round above the quiet village, casting a soft silver glow across the rooftops, the winding paths, and the peaceful fields below. The night was gentle, one of those nights when even the breeze seemed to breathe slowly, as if honoring the stillness of the world. Inside his small wooden home, Kai rested on his mat. Not asleep yet, but not awake in the way he used to be. His body lay settled, his breath flowed naturally, and his mind drifted like a boat on calm water. Tonight was different, not because the world was different, but because he was. He placed a hand lightly on his chest, feeling the slow rhythm beneath his palm. Once this heartbeat had been a reminder of fear, of sleeplessness, of thoughts spinning in endless circles. Tonight it felt like a companion, steady, patient, alive. He whispered softly into the quiet, "You've come a long way." His voice barely rose in the stillness, but he didn't need it to. The darkness around him was no longer something to fear. It was simply the world resting and inviting him to rest with it. A journey woven into breath. Kai closed his eyes and memories of the journey rose within him. Not sharp like before, but soft, warm like old leaves drifting to the ground. He saw Hakuin standing beside the bamboo fountain. A step is a moment, a breath is a moment, be here. Kai inhaled deeply, letting that truth settle inside him again. Then he saw Soen by the wide river placing a leaf gently onto the surface. Let everything flow, let everything pass. Kai exhaled, imagining each worry releasing like a leaf drifting downstream. Dogen appeared next. The soft mist around the temple, the bowl of water reflecting a shifting sky. You are the observer, not the thought. Kai felt his mind open, spacious and unburdened. Then Bank's laughter filled the air, loud, warm, unashamed. A peace is found when you stop insisting the world must be different. Kai smiled into the darkness. Ajo's face came last, gentle, compassionate, full of kindness. Speak to yourself the way you would speak to someone you love. Kai touched his heart again and whispered, I'm proud of you. His throat tightened, not with sadness but with tenderness. For the first time the words felt real, not forced, not practiced, but true. The sacredness of ordinary life. His thoughts drifted to Grandmother Wren. Her laughter, the simple porridge, the peas they shelled side by side, the garden, the bucket of clean water, and her voice, steady, grounded, wise in ways that only simplicity could be. Ordinary life is the highest temple. Kai opened his eyes, letting the moonlight touch his face. He looked around his small home, the wooden table, the folded blanket, the teapot, the candle, the mat on which he lay. None of it extraordinary, and yet everything felt sacred now. He realized that peace did not come from sacred places. It came from sacred attention. From the way he touched each moment, each breath, each movement, each thought. This home had not changed. He had. And because of that, everything looked new. The night no longer feared. He lay on his back and listened. Crickets sang in the grasses. A dog barked once in the distance. Leaves rustled outside the window. The old beams of his house creaked softly. These were the sounds he once fought. Sounds that in the darkness had felt sharper, heavier, almost threatening. Now they were simply life. Kai breathed in. The night breathed with him. He breathed out. The world softened around him. A thought rose. What if I cannot sleep? But this time he didn't push it away. He didn't tighten. He didn't fear. He simply watched it the way he watched clouds pass through the sky. It's okay, he whispered, and sleep will come when it's ready. He turned onto his side, pulling the blanket over his shoulder. The fabric felt warm, familiar, grounding. His breath slowed. His eyelids grew heavier. He let himself drift, a soft descent into rest. He felt the teachings not as words, but as sensations in his body. Haken in the steadiness of his breath. Soen in the looseness of his muscles. Dogen in the spaciousness of his mind. Bank in the acceptance of the night. Ijo in the softness of his heart. Grandmother Wren in the simplicity of just lying here. Nothing else needed. Kai exhaled again, deeper this time. The world around him dimmed. The sounds grew muffled. His body sank further into the mat. No effort, no struggle, no resistance. Just the soft falling into the arms of rest. He drifted through that gentle space where waking and sleep meet. The threshold where thoughts dissolve and peace begins to sing. And in that space he realized he no longer needed to search for peace. He had become it. The heart that has returned home. Kai slipped further into sleep, not suddenly but slowly, softly like a feather settling onto the earth. His breath steadied, his body relaxed completely. The last threads of waking faded like ripples on water. His mind, once a restless storm, lay quiet now like a lake under moonlight. And as slumber embraced him, a final whisper rose from somewhere deep within. You are home now. Not just home in the village, not just home in his house. Home in himself, home in his breath, home in the simplicity of being. A sense of gratitude bloomed gently in his sleep, like a lotus opening in the dark, and the night, for the first time in so long, held him without resistance. A night of deep, restorative sleep. Outside, the world continued its quiet rhythms. Branches swayed, stars shimmered. The moon watched over everything with calm. Inside, Kai slept deeply, more deeply than he had in years. A sleep without fear, a sleep without struggle. A sleep woven from understanding, from gentleness, from acceptance, from presence. A sleep that was not forced but allowed. And in allowing it, Kai discovered the truth that had been waiting for him since the beginning. Peace is not something you find on a journey. Peace is something you practice in every moment, until one day, without realizing it, you become the peace you seek. The night wrapped itself around him like a warm blanket, and Kai slept, softly, quietly, deeply, held by the world, held by himself, held by the simple beauty of a life finally lived with presence and love. Now, let everything become soft. You've walked a long journey with Kai tonight. You have breathed with him, you have learned with him, and you have rested with him. And now this moment is yours. There is nothing left for you to do. No more lessons to hold, no thoughts to chase, no memories to unfold. You are here, and the night is gently holding you. Breathe in, slowly, softly. Feel the air entering your body like a calm tide, and breathe out as every weight quietly melts away. Let your body grow heavier. Let your mind grow quieter. Let your heart open just enough to feel the comfort waiting inside you. The world outside is already asleep, and you are only a few breaths away from sinking into that same deep, peaceful rest. Nothing is